All right, can everybody hear me okay? All right, so good morning, everybody. It's so nice to have you here on this Sunday morning. For the parents who haven't been here on a Sunday morning yet, you might hear a little bit of music on the other end. We have all of our K through 5 starting the day together. So we are so excited to have Scott Freed here with you this morning. We've had an entire weekend of really just amazing learning and just really good people. It's nice to learn really great values and lessons from a great person and to be surrounded by all of you. So I'm glad we were able to offer this. And sorry, it's hard with the mask. I lose my breath. So Scott has done a lot with his life. He's devoted a life of service to others, particularly teens. Scott is a youth educator, an international award-winning speaker and writer. As a person living with HIV for more than 3 decades, Scott was part of and survived the 20th century pandemic, where his HIV/AIDS support group became the inspiration for the Broadway musical Rent. Scott's work spotlights the teenage years, shining a powerful message of love, responsibility, and self-respect. Scott is also the author of many books, which you will have the opportunity to look at afterwards. And with that, I don't want to take too much time because Scott will, you're going to want every minute you can with him. So with that, I'd like to introduce Scott Freed.
Is it okay with you if I take my mask off? Yeah? Hold on. Okay. Hi. I'm going to see if I can do this without a microphone. Okay. Hi. So it's so interesting for me to hear my bio read, only because the most important thing you need to know about me really is that I'm a nice Jewish boy from the 5 towns of Long Island, and I live in a rent-stabilized apartment in New York City. That's pretty much my bio there. And I travel around the country, or before the pandemic, and talk to teenagers and their parents. And I teach them how to love themselves. And today, I've come to teach you, or at least ignite in you, or perhaps remind you of what you already know, how to have a conversation with that teenager that once was a little cute child who was so talkative and so easy to understand and calm down with a Band-Aid and a kiss. And then when they become 15 or 16 or even 11 and 12, it becomes a different situation. So the first thing I want to do is ask you if you would just agree with me to one rule. And this rule that I have, and where, oh, that's the people at home on Zoom. Great. Okay. It's right behind Ann. That's okay, Ann. You're not in the way. You're fine. Ann, you're never in the way. You should know that. So the rule I ask of you, the only agreement is 3 words. And when you say yes to these 3 words, I want you to consider that these 3 words are the words that your teenager or preteen wishes they could say, or is actually saying, with the other words they're saying, like, go away, get away, I can't stand you, I don't want to talk to you. What they're really saying are these 3 words, which is what I want from you today. And it's simply this: be with me. For the next 90 minutes, I ask only that you give me your attention, your interest, your curiosity, your affection. Be with me, which is really what they want, and they're saying it in other words. Other than that, we can go further. So I also invite you to talk to me, to ask questions at any time, because I have a lot of material, but I do welcome whatever you have to say. Can we all be in agreement on that? Great. All right. So let's see if this, where do I click it? Rach, should I click it at you? Yeah, and it's not happening. No, that's the pointer. Yeah, it's not working. Oh, there it goes. Oh, now, okay. No, go up. I want to go up one more. Could you just do it? Okay. Okay. So let's just begin at the top. I want many of the same things you want for your teens. But I want one more thing. In addition to them going to a good college and having a good education and getting a good job and being able to be self-regulating when they're young adults, the most important thing I want for your teens, or actually two, I want them, and you'll understand in a few minutes when I explain this why, I want them to be able to know how to use a condom when the time comes. I want them to use condoms because many teens and adults don't. One, and two, I want them to be elegant. I want them to be elegant teens because to me, that's the goal of growing up. So what's in the definition of an elegant teen? It's not the teen that goes to the best school. It's not about whether they're happy or not, because happiness is a destination. And by the way, wanting my child to be happy, the question I ask you to ask yourself is based on whose definition of happiness? Your definition of happiness? Zadie's definition of happiness, because he's paying for college. So he wants her to date the person that he wants her to date. So he's happy, or her definition of happiness. But what I want is for them to be elegant. An elegant person is somebody who has agency. That's somebody who can take care of themselves, who knows who they are, who knows their surroundings and where they belong in their surroundings. An elegant person is a person in search of purpose, radiating originality, which is every teenager I've ever met. Dedicated to their own self-worth, has a deep reserve of compassion, right? Somebody who can feel for other people what they're feeling, can understand the hearts of others and themselves, and embraces pain and grief when life hurts. That's a big one. I want teenagers to be able to embrace pain and grief because life hurts. What most parents will say, what they want more than anything else, is for the child to be happy. But people don't always live in happy places all the time. So I want them to be able to embrace the times when they're not. I want them to be a joy to behold. In essence, what that slide says to me is a mensch. That's a mensch. So the next slide's going to be a bit harsh. I apologize in advance. Okay. I'm told there's a new expression in the teen world that's a trigger warning to let you know. So it's a suicide note. Can we do this? It's a young man, an 18 or 19-year-old, who wrote this letter to his mom and dad in pencil. And he titled it not a suicide letter. I'm sorry, this was my only way. I pushed all the pain down for so long, and now it's overflowing. I'm weak. I'm too weak and scared to go on. I'm so sorry. I only ever wanted to be good. I just want to be good. I'm sorry. So look, I'm just putting it out there at the very top of this talk for a reason. This is about much more than whether your kid goes to the best college and whether your teenager marries a Jew. We're talking here today about your child sticking around. This is big stuff. So anything short of that, you've succeeded. Just keep that in mind as the destination, because so many parents that I talk to are so concerned about so many, many things. And the first thing I say is this: do they sleep under your roof every night? Do they come home and sleep every night under your roof? Do you know where they are? You're good. You're good. Because there are parents who have got other issues to deal with. Next slide. Remember this from our childhood? I'm 58 years old, and I remember in 1972, after dinner, my older brother would go down to the den and read from the Encyclopedia Britannica. And that was the internet back then, right? And if it wasn't in there, and if my father didn't have the answer for a question that wasn't in there, then, or my mother didn't have it, then it didn't exist. But now we've got Wikipedia, now we've got Google and the internet. So one father asked me at one of my talks, how do we as adults, as parents of teens, compete with the internet and Wikipedia? And my answer to that, Dad, as it is to you, is this: you don't. There is no competition for the tender presence, the never-ending nearness, the unassailable attendance of a loving other of a parent. Your job among many, you're the chauffeur, you're the cook and the cleanup crew, you're the homework helper. You have a lot of jobs. But today I speak to you as the job of the one who is the loving other, the one who provides comfort and tender presence. The thing that they want most of all is for you to be with them, especially when they say, go away. And please shut the door on your way out. They need someone to push against and press off of, to hold close and fly away. The contradiction, they're leaving the nest, as it were, soon. So they're going to not make sense to you because they don't make sense to themselves. So give them someone to push against with a hug and press off of and ignore. One of my friends on Long Island says, my daughter is 12 years old. She came home from summer camp. I missed her so much. She wrote me letters how much she misses me. She's home one day. She's completely ignoring me. And I said to the dad, excellent. You're doing it right. Give her someone to ignore who will still give her breakfast and a ride to the mall. That's how unconditional love is established. So if they ignore you, you're doing it right. They're saying, be with me, in other words. Teenagers speak in hashtag. They live in a hashtag world. Everything on Twitter or AOL, Instagram is hashtag, right? So they're speaking in hashtag in subtext. So you're not competing. What I want you to remember today, most of all, is you're doing it right if you're there. They want your presence. Now I'm looking at Quentin over there. That's what they want. Maybe they're not going to sit on your lap anymore, but they want the closeness. They want the nearness. They want it so badly, and they're embarrassed by it, and they don't know how to deal with it because they're changing, but they're saying, be with me. So unassailable attendance, perpetual presence, never-ending nearness. And listen to the words. It's alliteration. It's poetry. I speak to and about teenagers in poetic terms because once upon a time, they were that age, and they loved to be read bedtime stories to sleep. So speaking to them and about them in poetic terms softens the amygdala. It calms down the nervousness, the anxiety of growing up. Next slide. Oh, not working? Yeah. So this is the main, so every rabbinical student, I think the rabbi will agree, every rabbinical student starts out using this midrash, as their initial sermon. Right? Every young rabbi knows that it's a safe bet to say, once upon a time when you were born, there was an angel that whispered in one ear, you've all heard it, and said, for your sake alone was this world created. And in the other ear, the angel whispers, or sometimes it's a piece of paper in the pocket, you came from dust and ash, and back to dust and ash you shall return. And that's about learning modesty and humility and learning who you are in the universe and the world. And it's a great sermon. It's a go-to sermon. But for a teenager, it's their life. It explains what's going on in a teenager's psyche. It's something that I call the exalted destiny. What is an exalted destiny? When they were born, or in fact, before they were born, or when they came into your life through adoption, or however they came into your lives, right? You prepared for their arrival and exalted their destiny, and everything in this world was meant for them. And I will prove it. When I was born, I have a twin brother, and my parents didn't know they were having twins. And so I was called Baby B. They didn't have a crib for me or a name for me. So I'm Baby B. The nurses called me Baby B. And my mother called me her bonus. I was the one for whom the world was created. When I was 10, my dad got me a lefty's mitt, a red lefty's baseball mitt, and it had the letter S stitched inside the preformed pocket. My brothers were jealous of this really cool red mitt, which now I know my father gave me because the brown mitt he gave to my twin brother so he can tell us apart in the field. But they thought it was cool to have a red leather mitt with a letter S stitched inside, and they said the S is not a cool mitt. There's nothing special. The S stands for Spalding. And my dad said, don't listen to them. That S stands for Scotty. Because everything in this world has your fingerprints on it. It's all for the taking. It's all yours. That's what that first part means. For my sake was the world created. But then I turned 13 and I realized that the mitt actually was red because he couldn't tell me apart from my brother. And the S did stand for Spalding. And life lent its lessons as it does in time, right about when they become 11, 12, 13 teenagers. And I began living on the other side. I'm dust and ash. I don't exist. I'm not that important. I'm confused. As a child, some of you have heard me say this all weekend, children walk through the world literally and metaphorically, picking up pennies and promises, putting them in their pockets. And that's the fortune of childhood. And then overnight, their pockets at the age of 12 or 13 are no longer filled with pennies and a promise, marbles and moonbeams and all beautiful things. Their pockets are filled with words, words that say, I am defective. I don't belong. If you knew the real me, you would not love me. I hate my body. I'm not enough. We call these expressions negative organizing principles, negative cognitive beliefs. It's very Jungian. The way we set up our worldview starts at that age, right around the early teen years. Well, even, of course, even younger. As a child, it's all the I am enough, I am lovable, I do belong. My world is as wide as a circle of hands that hold me. But then the circle breaks, it gets bigger. And then as a teenager, it's the I am defective, I don't belong. If you knew who I really was, you wouldn't love me. Think about why it is that everything about social media for teens is like me. Like my Facebook post, follow me on Instagram, follow me back, me, me, me. When they were kids, it was me, 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 see me, and we were happy to do that. But now as teenagers, they're saying it in different words. Subtext, hashtag. Next slide. That didn't work out. Next slide. It doesn't come out so good. All right. So if you want to understand how to have a conversation with a teenager, yours or anybody else's, the first thing you got to understand is that they are living with a giant paradox, a contradiction that even they themselves don't understand, or maybe they can articulate but can't accept. And the contradiction among many teenagers are contradictions. One day it's the trombone, the next day it's soccer. One year it's vegetarian, the next year it's red meat. They don't make sense to themselves and to you. They're growing, they're changing, they're on outer edges, learning to find the middle ground to become integrated whole human beings. That's normal. But to them, the greatest of all the contradictions is this one. They long to be seen. See me, know me, love me, want me, pick me for the team, and they're afraid of being found out. That's a tough contradiction. See me, but don't see me too much. Come here, but not too close. Love me, but if you knew the real thing about me, maybe you wouldn't, but would you? They want to be caught by a loving other, right? They want to be seen, but by someone who won't judge them or try to fix them or challenge them, or even question them. And let's say this right now at the very outset. Whenever you talk to a teenager, just try, if you can, to remove the word why. Because why is a shaming sentence to a teen, especially to a teen, maybe even an adult. And why to a teenager only ends in because. It's the end of a conversation. So what a teenager wants is to be caught. In fact, let's speak for all of us. I think we can. What we all want as humans is to be known and to be seen and to be heard and to be loved and accepted and received and remembered for what is known and heard about us. It's a big sentence. But we as adults perhaps can handle the rejection or the fear that comes after being known and found out. They're learning the world. So they want to be known and found out and remembered by a loving other. Who are the loving others? Every person in this room today. What I like to call the come here people. You've heard me speak yesterday. You've heard me say this. C''MERE. The ones who say, come here. Right? And you have many jobs. As I said earlier, you're the chauffeur, you do the homework, you clean up after them, you discipline them. You're also the come here person, the one who says, come here, let me love you for who you are. Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you. This is a big statement. The way I understand to heal somebody in pain, of any type of pain, is to see in them what they are not showing, is to hear what they are not saying. It's called 360 listening. Listen to what's not being said, to their body language, the way they dress, the way they act. And most of all, the way to heal somebody into wholeness is to, over the long period of time, love in them what they have not yet learned to love in themselves. To love in them the things they hate in themselves or don't tolerate in themselves. And this is where you come in, because they may not like their body image. They may not be happy with their sexuality. I did not want to be gay. When I discovered as a 5-year-old that I'm different, and when I discovered at 12 that the thing that I thought at 5 was different was the gay thing in me, I didn't want to be me. Many these days recognize they were born in the wrong body, assigned female at birth, AFAB, assigned male at birth, AMAB, that's how we say it now, need to transition, transgender. So to love in them what they have not yet learned to love, accept, understand in themselves is what heals them. And that's what a Khmer person does. They say only 2 things. When a teenager or some friend comes to them and says, my heart is broken, I'm confused, here are the words in my pockets. The Khmer person, and that's you as a loving other in this role right now, says only 2 things. 1, yes. Not never deny, 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 just yes. And 2, what would you like for dessert? Now I will model this. I will show you how this works. The other day I was in New York doing a workshop for trans teens on the spectrum, neurodiverse teenagers who are concerned or questioning their gender. And a mom came to pick up her child and the child said, I'm demented and I'm deformed, or no, I'm demented, I'm defective, something like that. And the mom said, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're amazing. So that all of the other kids could hear, because she wanted to make sure her child and the others felt that. And so I interrupted and I said, I know you don't know me because this was the first session. I know we've never met before and this is not the way I want to start off, but can I try something here? And the mom said, sure. So I said to the teen who named themselves Echo, Echo, what I heard you say was that you think that you're demented and deformed and defective. Did I get that right? Did I get that right? And they said, now listen to the pronoun. I know it's hard on the brain. One person, but it's they, not he or she. That's the pronoun. They prefer. They said, yeah, that's exactly right. And then I said, that must be so difficult to have to feel a lot. And they said, yeah. And I looked at the mom and said, now you can continue. But what we do as loving others with the best of intentions so often is make the mistake that Khmer people don't make, which is we negate them. So if you could learn anything from me this weekend, this morning, please learn this. Please memorize this. Never forget that I said this. Stop negating your kids. Please stop. With the best, I know why you're doing it. It doesn't work. It's not working. It only makes things worse. Sorry, that's harsh. Please don't negate them anymore. When they say to you, I'm defective, the response that you say could be, what I'm hearing you say is that you think, you feel inside of you, there's a part of you that is being visited with something that feels like defected or demented or, right? Did I get that right? People want to be heard. And you've heard me say this a lot this weekend. Their words in your mouth. Their words in your mouth. And so the loving others are the ones, the Khmer people are the ones who help the teenager, guide them through life, accepting them exactly who they are. And this is a great sentence. It is a rare privilege to be surrounded just by a few loving others, a few BFFs, a few Khmer people who give you permission. This is true of you as adults as well as teenagers, who give you permission to be exactly who you are. especially if who you are isn't who you want to be. Let me say it again. It's rare and it's a privilege to be in the presence of somebody who says, I will allow permission to lament, permission to be confused, permission to be a contradiction, permission to be. Even if who you are right now isn't who you want to be, here is some dessert. That's how a Khmer person operates. Next slide. Okay, so this is a great example of the contradiction I just explained. How is it that they say they don't want to get caught, but they want to get caught? Many teenagers will give me a code after my talks. And they'll used to give me emails and DMs, and sometimes they'll actually write me a little note. And sometimes they come in the form of Morse code, their own code. And so much so that when I work with teenagers these days, I actually give them the assignment, make a code, tell me a secret, have me figure it out. If you look at the top, you've got the alphabet from left to right, and underneath that, you've got the same alphabet from right to left. That is this teen's code. I think it's a boy. I think we'll figure out why in a few minutes. I want to see if you can figure out what ZNRTZB stands for. This seventh grader, am I gay? Great. This seventh grader from Temple Synagogue in Coral Gables, Florida, handed me this piece of paper after a talk. If anybody can tell me what the next slide, R, MVVW, SVOK, and listen carefully to the silence of the room as you're trying to figure it out. This silence, this tenderness, this curiosity, this interest, this non-judgmental trying to understand so that you can help this seventh grader is exactly the energy that your teen craves from you. Did I just model that for you? I made you experience it. Can you give me the next slide? Okay, so what it says is, am I gay? I need help. I stare at the popular boys and girls with envy. Every teen has a secret, many in fact. This is what this one teen's seventh grade secret, right? The message I want to get across to you is the time and tenderness that you took to try to figure it out is the time and tenderness, the care and curiosity that every teenager desires. Not what many parents, some parents do. Are you gay? It's okay if you're gay. Just come out already. Right? Is the eating disorder back? If you're cutting your skin, we'll talk about it. I need to know. That's not how to talk to a teen who you think will talk back to you. If you want them to have a conversation with you, you got to figure out their code. And today I'm going to help you figure out their code. You with me? Next slide. So let's keep going. We don't have much time for all this. It's great stuff, but I don't have time for it. Sorry. Yeah. Real quickly. The teen brain and the adult brain. And I am kind of timid about this because when I did a talk on Friday to some educators, I'm going to be really honest with you. I showed this slide and they challenged me and said, well, but there's more. So yeah, there's more. There's more than the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. Let's just explain that. But to make it simple for you right now, let's just talk about the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. Generally speaking, very simply, a teenager's amygdala is on fire. It's charging all the time, fight or flight. Generally speaking, an adult has a fully formed prefrontal cortex, third eye, right here in the forehead. And that's planning and reasoning. So when you talk to a teenager, you're talking generally to an amygdala that's on fire. There's more to the brain than that. I get it. But generally speaking, next slide. And so putting it simply, the amygdala, emotions, gut, fight or flight, the prefrontal, the CEO, reason and planning, etc. So what I want to teach you right now is how to talk to the prefrontal cortex of a growing teen's brain, what some parents call the mushy brain, and not to the amygdala. When you say to a teen, right, when you say, no, you're not, you're amazing, you've just spoken to their amygdala. And you've made the amygdala go on fire, right? Because we've denied them, we've dismissed them, we've negated them. When we say, Tell me more about this feeling demented, defective, not fitting in. I want to know more about that. We're speaking to the prefrontal cortex, which is how a Khmer person speaks, right? Or I like to think that my Bubby would speak to me, my great Aunt Minda would speak. Tell me more about that. That engages the part of the brain that feels and thinks and plans and reasons. So here are some examples of how to literally speak to a teenager. Next slide. Oh, question is, before that slide, when given the choice, especially in an argument with your child, especially when you're fighting with your grandchild. Well, I don't think grandparents fight with their grandkids, but parents do, right? Grandparents never fight with their grandkids. When given the choice, ask yourself this: would you rather be right or would you rather be effective? There are many different ways to ask this question. In spiritual circles, they say, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? That's a nice question too. But as parents, I'm asking you to pick one. And I hope you'll pick the second one. The goal is to be effective, not to be right. You want to get through to them. You want to get to have a conversation with them so that you can find out where their secrets are, so that you never get one of those letters at the top of this talk, a suicide note, which, by the way, did end in a successful suicide. The goal is to get a conversation started. That's it. So that they're talking to you. And when parents, I had dinner last night with some friends of friends here in Chicago, and one of the moms said, my child, excuse me, I'm sorry, I have to take this. My 18-year-old is texting me all the time. And I just said, that's awesome. It's awesome. You have a teenager that wants to talk to you. That's the goal. They should be so annoying. You should be so lucky, right? You get that. So here's some specific tricks. Next slide. No, we don't have time for that. Let's move on. Sorry, we don't have time. No, keep going. No, next one. Here you go. Okay. You want to turn a you statement into an I statement. As parents or as people in a position of power, we start a lot of sentences with you. You need to clean your room, and you need to come to the table right now, and you. But the you statements excite the amygdala. Anytime someone tells you, right, you should not be wearing that. You need to do whatever. You need to lose 10 pounds, whatever it is. Your amygdala is going to fight or flight, right? But if the sentence starts with I, it's more inviting. It's an open door, right? I am feeling that maybe that sweater isn't the best sweater for you tonight. It's a lot softer. So it's more prefrontal. So anytime you find yourself speaking you, turn it to I. You is a pointed finger. I is an open door. This works for adults with other adults as well as it does for teenagers, but specifically for teens and preteens, because their brains are always scanning for safety. Every room a teenager walks into, they're scanning to see where is it safe? Who gets me? Who's the Khmer person? Who's going to make it okay? And that's you. And the way you prove it to them is by inviting them with I statements. Example, can I ask you something? Is a you statement, as opposed to I'm curious about something and I'd like to explore it. Turning it around. Example, are you open to a suggestion? Nobody is open to a suggestion. Nobody wants feedback, ever, right? You turn it, I've been thinking about something. I heard you say, let me know if any time later you want to hear my thoughts. That's how my dad talked. That's how your dad talked too. Man, if you want to talk later, I have some thoughts about it, but you can come to me. I'm here. I'm here if you want to talk about it. This one, we need to talk. No. We don't need to talk. I, as your parent, need to talk, and I need you to listen. And I would hope that you'll talk in response, but the we engages them into a deal that they didn't want to be in. You want to get them in the deal, you got to invite them in. And this one, you can tell us anything. And there, by the way, my book has 50 more, chapter and chapter of examples. But this is just some example. You can tell us anything. This is the one that bothered me as a teenager because it scared the crap out of me. So here's the thing. I was the teenager in the closet in 1972, 73, got bar mitzvahed in 76. So I was a teenager in 77, 78, 79. And I remember that when my mom and dad would say, you can tell us anything, I would think, oh, no, I can't. You can't know A, that I've discovered masturbation. B, who I masturbate to in my head. People of the same gender. No, 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 I can't tell you anything. So the question I want to ask you is this: can they tell you anything? And I hope the answer in your minds right now is, yeah, of course. But if it's not, that's okay too. It's okay to be an adult, a human being, a parent who has difficulty with some of the stuff that comes out of your kids' mouths. It's hard for a lot of parents when their child says, I'm in the wrong body. It's hard for a lot of parents when their child says, my mom, it was so hard for her to accept the fact that I was vegetarian. All she wanted to do was make me chicken soup. It's hard to tell them anything. So when you say you can tell us anything, it's already putting the amygdala on fire. And they're thinking, no, I can't. So how do you change that? I, or we, but you know, keep it I, because we is 2 against 1, and that's just not fair. Mom and mom, dad and dad, mom and dad. See what I did there? Totally all friendly. Mom, all of we, it's 2 against 1, and it's not fair. So it's got to be 1 against 1-on-1. I want to be the type of parent you can say anything to, but I may not be that parent. I'm trying. Same intention, different impact. Please understand that words, every word we say has an impact. Every word. That's why we've got the PC police. That's why people are getting canceled, because words have impact. Be careful of the words that you use, not just because of your intention, but the impact. So when you say to a teenager, in fact, anybody, but especially a teenager, I never intended to hurt you, that's nice. That's talking about your intention, but that doesn't include how it impacted them. So to get a teenager to talk back to you, you got to have the second half of the sentence. While I never intended to hurt you, or I never intended to ignore you, or I never intended to do that, I can see how it bothered you. I can see and feel, I can tell that it did hurt you. The impact is what understanding the impact of our words and our behavior is what heals people. So real quick lesson on forgiveness, right? Forgiveness, asking an apology. An apology isn't, I'm sorry, my bad, I'll never do that again. A true apology is, here's what I did. Here's how I think it affected you. Here's what I learned from this mistake. And now I'll try not to do that again. But engaging the other person and recognizing how our behavior impacted their lives. You can already feel, right, when I say that, how we all want that. That's what a teen wants. And if we can't speak to them in this way, we're only halfway there. Does that make sense? Okay. It's weird with the mask. I see you nodding, but I can't tell if it's really getting. Is it getting through? Good. Okay. Next slide. Next slide. Keep going. Yeah, this one's a good one. I'm sorry, I was wrong. That's possibly the best I statement a parent can say. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Right? It's powerful. It's an invitation. It also shows your teen that you as an adult make mistakes and can recover from them. You are fallible and you're resilient, which means that they can make mistakes and they're going to make many and they will recover and also be resilient. Why? Because they saw you do it. They're watching everything you do, which brings up another point. Well, we're going to get to it in a moment. They're watching everything you do, everything. So it's okay. Own it. That's all. And know that if you can be resilient, they can be resilient. Again, last night at dinner, this woman talked about how she got divorced and then remarried and got a better husband and ultimately a better father for her son. And I remember saying to her, you showed your son how to change your life for the better. So now he's going to be able to do that too. You're modeling all the time. Next slide. Hey, Quentin. Next slide. Yeah, this is a little psychology, but it's really important. This is what my dad would do, and I suspect you're even doing it, don't know you're doing it. So introjection is a Psych 101 term that literally means to project into, rather onto. Projection means I'm feeling something about you, but it's really about me, so I'm going to put it on you, right? Introjection is I'm feeling something about you, and I want to put it inside you. And so when you introject, healthy attitudes and ideas into the psyche of a child, you're planting seeds that grow into a tree of confidence. What does that mean? I'll give you the best example I can think of. Next slide. Remember this movie, The Help? Remember Abilene Clark, Viola Davis? You is kind, you is smart, you is important. My dad used to say to me when I was a gawky, awkward teenager waiting for his growth spurt, "You're so handsome." And I think, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? I'm not John Otto, the football captain who grew up to be a Nassau County cop. But he kept saying, "You're so handsome." And one day I looked in the mirror and I saw it. I saw it, right? So we're introjecting what you want them to feel, you place in there. Now, this is really interesting in reverse. A lot of times we introject negative stuff, not knowing we're doing it. Let me give you an example and see if you find yourself making this mistake. And it's okay if you do, right? It's not even a mistake. It's just, it's not as effective. So here's what a lot of parents do. They see their child unhappy, depressed, anxious after a year of being at home from school and not having socialization and having the ability to learn their social skills. So they'll say things to their kids like, you seem unhappy. And you see the negative introjection. Or not even, or even more clandestine. I wish you were happy. I want you to have everything. I want you to be able to do all the things that kind of thing, the I want you to suggests to the teenager that you think that they can't do it. They don't have it already. When a mom says to her daughter, "I want you to be happy," the mom is saying to the daughter, "I have a feeling you're not," as opposed to planting the happiness in there. It's semantic. If the teenager is unhappy, then you could say, "Tell me if you're unhappy." But to imply they're unhappy takes away, it sort of puts it in its place. Does that make sense? So negative interjection works in the other way as well as positive. Next slide. Secrets. Secrets to a teenager are like scaffolding to a building. They form the architecture of self. Right outside my building in New York City right now, we've got scaffolding because they're repointing and things are falling, and it protects people around the building. Secrets protect the building and the people around the building, the teenager and the people around the teenager. Every teenager has a secret life, even yours. And if you're the parent or grandparent that's thinking right now, "But I know all my child's secrets," then I would say especially yours. Every teenager needs to have a secret life. They need their secrets because it helps them develop a sense of self. It's the me versus you. It's the creating of their boundary. I need to have my own personal something. It's the go away. I'm developed. What's after the go away and shut the door when you leave? It's the go away and shut the door. I'm developing my self-actualized state one day. I'm working on me. Work in progress here. That's what that's about. But don't go too far. Be with me. Got it? So here are some ways to get access to those secrets. Next slide. Ask original questions. Really original questions. Instead of "How was your day? What did you do?" Here are some examples of the questions that I ask teenagers in this book. It's a book of 10 questions and their answers anonymously and why those questions are important. But I think every teenager should answer before they become an adult. An important one. What does the emptiness inside feel like? Not is there an emptiness? There is. We all feel it sometimes. What does it feel like? Whose arms do you fall into when life hurts? Who's your come here person? As opposed to, of course, how was your day and what did you do? But ask them questions. Now, they're not going to answer you. Please understand that I understand. They're not going to answer these questions. But they're going to be thrilled that you're interested in them. And I'll prove it. Next slide. So I got this letter from a lot of words. The only thing that's important to you is for us is the red, in red. Story of a teenage girl, BBG, B'nai B'rith Youth Organization, many years ago at a weekend retreat, handed me this letter, and wrote me this letter. She was going to hook up with this guy, and he was really kind of cute, interesting. She hadn't figured him out. And then he says in red, "I really want to have sex with you." And she's like, "I'm thinking about it." I let it hang in the air. And then she remembers every opportunity I'd given him to get to know me because I'm interesting. has been ignored. He didn't even ask me any questions about me. Every opportunity I'd given him to tell me about himself was ignored. And I realized he's not that interesting. And he doesn't really care about getting to know me. So I said, thanks, but no, because I'm Claudia and I'm interesting. Who taught her that? Mother, her father, her grandmother, her grandfather, somebody taught Claudia that she's interesting. How? Because they asked her important and original questions. I'm curious to know about your life. I'd like to know who you would vote for if you were old enough, when you're old enough to vote, if you were, if, when, whatever. I want to know your thoughts, your feelings, and you know what? You don't have to tell me, but I want you to know that I'm interested in you. So when the time comes for Claudia or whomever to hook up with somebody and they're feeling unsafe, they understand, and uninterested in and unwanted, they know why, because they know what it's like to be in the presence of somebody who is. You get that? Ask original questions. Next slide. People, this is from Tumblr. I push people away when all I really want is someone to hug me and tell me it's okay. Contradiction. Go away, come back. We give up our secrets in the dark. You want to know a teenager's secret? It's the end of the day, not when you're picking them up from soccer game or practice or after school or on the way to the dentist or wherever else. That's not the time they're going to tell you, or not at the Shabbos table, because that's the time the family gets together, if you're in my family, to fight. Seriously, it's confrontational. Robert's over there, I'm over here, and there's just not enough chicken cutlets for us in the middle. Like, we're going to have a fight about the week. So it's entire, right. So when their defenses are down in the dark, think about it. Slumber parties, summer camp cabins, sleepovers, closed eye conversation. Your eyes are closed, your mouth is open, and you're sharing the things that you would never say in the light of day. You want to find out what happened to your kid that day? Crawl into bed with them if they still let you. And if they don't, then on the floor with them, but you've got to be touching head to head, arm to arm, shoulder to wrist. There's got to be contact, oxytocin, looking up at the glow in the dark stars in the ceiling, and talk about your day. And start with an I statement. Let me tell you about the day I had. And they may roll their eyes, but you can't see it because it's dark. And they're going to listen. They want in, even if you feel they don't, or it feels like they don't. And then they'll tell you a little bit more about their days. I actually think that I believe my definition of sex is we give up our secrets in the dark. Physically, we give up our secrets in the dark when we're having sex with another person. The dark is a really great place to find out some stuff. Next question, next slide. Cell phone and teens. And so this one's really important. So I'm just as guilty. Please understand that what I'm about to say to you is, I have a dog now. It's not the same thing, but I'm always on my phone in front of my dog. And he just looks up at me and is like, enough already. Seriously, I have this ball and I want you to pull it out of my mouth or throw it. And I literally would say to him, just 1 second, one second, Galileo, just hang on. Like, he understands that I have to get this text across. If you want your teenager to get off the phone, the first thing you could do is get off the phone in front of them, right? I mean, think about it. Think about how often we are modeling the wrong behavior that we want them to not do. So please consider putting your phone away more than you even are already. Seriously, it's a thing that it's become an accepted reality that at a dinner table, at a restaurant, that somebody can just disappear into their phone and the conversation continues. But do you remember 20 years ago, that would never fly when the phones first came out or whatever the year was. That would never fly. But our standards of acceptance of what's decorum and kind and okay have changed, but not for me and not for the teens. So if you want them to get off the phone in front of you, you got to do the same in front of them. Next slide. So there's a lot of stuff about phones and teens, especially now because they're on school, on their tablet, and on the computer at home, virtually. So it's not as easy as it once was to just take it away because that's their school. That's their lifeline. It's actually everything now. So there's something that I call digital integrity. If you want your teenager to be a young, elegant adult, You got to help them and model for them what digital integrity is. So, so first, instead of saying we're eating dinner, put your phone down. How about saying we're eating dinner, put your phone down so that I could see your beautiful face? Instead of it being a curse or a punishment, how about it being a reward? Put your phone down. I want to see how beautiful you are. Let me see. Ah, you're so beautiful. It's a little flourish. That's all it is. And the most important in any room for teenagers, a person in any room is a teenager. Digital integrity means that what you say online is who you are. Integrity. My words and my actions are in sync. I'm in alignment with what I say and what I do. So if you can model digital integrity for them, they will see what digital integrity looks like and feel what it feels like. What's digital integrity? It's always behaving the same online. Never using social media or texting or your phone to do the job of parenting. I believe, not being a parent, but being everybody's gay uncle, I believe the job of the purpose of the phone as a parent to a teenager is to say, I'm running 10 minutes late. Could you put the meatloaf in the oven? Not, did you have the conversation about breaking up with your girlfriend? That's not what the phones are for. And if we as adults use the phone to have conversations with them, deep conversations, then we're modeling that that's okay. Now, I know that that's the way we communicate, but if you want to communicate, let me give you an example with the phone. I can't promise you that they're going to read every text, they're going to respond to every text that you send. But I can promise you this, they're going to read every text that you send. So a mom had a fight with her daughter had a fight with her mom at dinner one night. She stormed off and went to her room and slammed the door. When we were kids, that was the end of a conversation. My dad would bang on the door and he would say, open this door, because I own this door, but my brother would never open the door. But today, the mom composed herself, put the dishes, put the food on the counter, prepared a plate for her daughter. And when she was ready, she texted her daughter and said, I made a plate for you. It's on the counter. When you're hungry, it's here in the kitchen. And if you want to continue this conversation later, I'm here to talk. Do you hear the digital integrity? It's not fighting and then being kind. What I'm trying to say is there must be only one tone that you communicate with your child when you're using the phone. One tone. And that tone is always loving, never punishing, never angry. You could say, I'm angry with you. We'll talk about it when I get home, but never using the phone. I think I made my point. Loving, 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 loving. So that when they read your text, because they're going to read it in the mood that they're in. So they'll read it. I read text in the mood I'm in, and then I reread it. I'm like, oh, that's not what I originally read, and that's not what they meant. That's what I thought they meant because I was in a bad mood. But on second reading, actually what they said was, and I've made many mistakes sometimes. Next week, I'm going to Ithaca College. After here, I'm driving to Ithaca College, and the student wrote me a text that said, can you, how many days are you available Monday through Friday to come speak? I was driving, so I read it, and I was angry. I was frustrated, and I read, oh my God, he wants me to work 5 days and pay me for just 1 day? How dare he? My head went crazy. So I pulled over, I wrote him back and said, I wrote some response. And then a couple hours later, I reread it, and he was just trying to find out what days I'm available. That's all. It's never a good idea, and I'm guilty of this too, to only be loving, never use it as an opportunity to parent. It's just a tool to get them to talk. Next slide. Tips for listening with love: own your judgments. If you've got one, own it. If you have a judgment about your child's friends or the people they're dating or what they're wearing, simply own it. You can say, this is my judgment. I have a problem with what you're wearing, but I want to know what your feelings are about it. Own that you've got a judgment about it. They know our judgments. They feel our judgments. Listen for the whole truth. Let me give you an example. I got infected with HIV, in 1987, my first time having condomless sex. So that's the truth. But as I said earlier, 360 listening, listening for what they're not saying. What's behind that? Here's the whole truth. I got infected with HIV in 1987, my first time not using a condom because I didn't want to be gay, because nobody taught me how to use a condom, and I hated myself and I wanted to self-destruct. Do you hear the whole truth now? I'm not going to tell you the whole truth. It's your job to hear it, though, to listen for it. It's in between the words. How do you listen for the whole truth? You listen with love, not with judgment, not with the opportunity to figure out when it's time for you to get into the conversation, to interject your opinion or decision. It's all about receiving. So how do you do that? You ask yourself, when you want to say something to your teenager who's talking, right? You say to yourself, does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said? This thing in my head. Does it need to be said by me? This thing in my head. And does it need to be said by me right now? This is from the 12 steps. This is from the rooms, the AA and Al-Anon and NA rooms. Does it need to be said by me right now? Ask yourself. Or wait stands for, why am I talking? Simply allow them to talk. The unarguable truth. I will teach the little ones, the preteens, the 7th and 8th graders this today. We all have the right to feel what we feel. That's called the unarguable truth. And as I said earlier, when a parent or an adult or anybody negates us, no, you're not. You're amazing. Don't believe that. Don't feel that way. Stop crying. But if they're sad and they're crying, we say, stop crying. We're denying them their feelings. And the truth is their feelings. Their feelings are the truth. So the unarguable truth are feelings. Feelings aren't facts. Feelings are experiences. Feelings come to visit, to teach and move on, to change us and move on. So when we deny them that, we're stopping the flow. So it's the unarguable truth. Let love stumble into the conversation. What does that mean? So when they're talking, I want you to listen for two things: what they're saying and what they're not saying, and also for the moment that love stumbles in. Not the love you have for them because you've known them 15 years. Not the love you have for them because you love them unconditionally all the time. I'm talking about the love that stumbles into the conversation. Wait for it, there it is. Love them. Oh, I just got a pang of love, right? That moment. And when it comes, they're going to stop talking. And they're going to go, what? And they're going to go, and you're going to go, nothing, keep talking. Nothing. It steps into the conversation and they feel the flow. I'm asking you to listen for and wait for and invite in the love that isn't already there, not the love you have for them, the love that needs to be in the conversation. Do you understand the difference? Right? That's how you listen with love. Ask for directions. My friend Susan is a social worker, and we used to have a Saturday morning conversation, and she would say to me, I just want to know if you want social worker Susan today or you want BFF Susan today. Because social worker Susan is going to help you solve it, and BFF Susan's going to say, oh my God, that's awful. So which one do you want? So if you want to have a conversation with them, you might want to say, tell me how to help you. Do you want me to fix this, solve this, or want me to listen? And you tell me, and they're going to tell you most of the time, listen. Because if they wanted you to solve it, they would start the conversation with, I need you to fix this, solve this, talk less, listen more. I can't say that one enough. Just talk less, listen more. Next slide. The car is a great place to have your conversations with a teenager. The car is, they can't go anywhere, right? They're trapped. And you're not facing each other, you're facing the road. What I love about the car is that it's also a place where teenagers get silent, get comfortable with silence. It's a conversation too. So many parents say to me, my child doesn't talk to me, I just want them to talk to me. And I say to them, they're talking to you. They're just not using words. So get comfortable with silence. It's really important. Why? What you're saying to your child in a conversation without words, in a long car ride, with no music, is you are enough exactly as you are. I don't need to have a great conversation with you. I don't need you to be funny. We don't even need to have music. Your presence alone is enough. When I was a little boy and my dad would take me to Great Neck so we can get a haircut, I coveted those rides. I got to sit in the front seat. By the way, because I was the youngest, so I always had to sit in the back of the station wagon waving at the cars behind me, that little rumble seat in the back. If you got more than one kid in the house, take turns sitting shotgun for this reason in particular, not just because it's fun, because they need to see you driving them in the road on the roads. I want them to see the road that you see, literally and metaphorically. It's a way for them to see the way you see them driving them. You're driving them through adolescence. And you're saying to them with my mom would be 10 and 2. My dad would be forearm and whistling, right? They were driving me through my adolescence. They were saying, I got you. I got you. Don't worry. I got this. I got you. Make them sit in the front with you. But if they do, here's the catch. They can't have their phone out. They can't be looking down at their phone. This is a privilege, to look up and see the road the way you see the road. Want to sit? You want to be on your phone? You can sit in the back. You want to sit with me? Let's just be here together. I want you to see the way I see it. So silence is important. My dad would take me to Great Neck, and I would talk and talk and talk and talk because I was 10. When I was 14, I was silent because I discovered that I'm gay. And he was a gym teacher. And it was 1979, whatever the year was. And I would watch Charlie's Angels, and Farrah Fawcett was every boy's dream. But at 10 o'clock, the $6 million man came on, and Steve Austin was my dream. But I couldn't say that to my dad. So I was afraid to speak for fear of giving myself away. And then I was afraid if I didn't speak, he wouldn't invite me next month when he needed to get a haircut. But every month he kept inviting me. And what I learned from that experience was my dad didn't need me to talk. He just needed me. You hear the difference? So silence is a great opportunity to introject enoughness into a child. Let them ride shotgun, listen to their music. I know it's hard, but try to find some way that music you guys can agree on. Their music speaks to the emptiness in them that they can't, that it speaks for them. So when you judge their music, there's a risk you're taking that they may hear that you're judging them. I know that you're not, but they may feel that you're judging them if you judge their music. I felt that. My mom would say, shut this off, it's such noise. And I'd feel bad because I loved Air Supply. I loved it. I'm all out of love. I'm so lost without you. Two less lonely people in the world, right? But so when we judge their music where it may imply to them that we're judging them, and make them listen to your music, not just because it's good to listen to your own music, but because one day in the natural order of life, God willing, we go before they go. That's how this is supposed to happen. And one day when they're 35 or 45 or 58, they will be listening to their version of Sirius XM channel 72. And they'll hear a song that you sang to, and you will be back in the car with them, and everything will be right in the world. And they'll take it as a sign from you. And you'll still be their parent from another place. So make them listen to your music now, so that when that time comes 30, 40, 50 years from now, whatever it is, you're still there. Next slide. Beware of the shush moments. Okay, so a shush moment is, in my terminology, what a therapist calls the doorknob conversation. You all know that when you're in therapy for 45 minutes, you know that conversation that you got your hand on the doorknob and you say, oh, you know what I want to talk about next week? I'm cheating on my husband, but I gotta go. We'll talk next week. That's the doorknob conversation. Gotta go. But we'll come back to this. In the teen world, I call it a shush moment. When you have to shush in them, they may just be trying to tell you something. That's their doorknob moment, right? Now you have to shush them because you're looking for your keys. You got to get out the door. The rabbi is about to give his sermon. Whatever it is, the lights are going down in the movie theater. It's a very quiet restaurant. You got to shush them, teaching them about space, their place in the world. But I want you to remember that a teenager is going to tell you, the parent or the grandparent, the thing that you want to know that they don't want to know, they don't want you to know, at the worst possible time. They're not going to tell you in the car. They're not going to tell you at the Shabbos table. I told my mother, or planned to tell my mother, that I got infected with HIV as my hand was on the doorknob of the car while the train was coming into the Cedarhurst train station across from Al Steiner's restaurant. So I could say, well, the train's here. I got to go. I'll call you when I get back to the city. But the train never came. That was the plan. Tell my mom and then get out of the car. I can't tell you how it worked out because it's too painful for me to tell a room full of Jewish mothers how I told my mother. But the point I want to make is you wait till the worst possible time. And that's a shush moment. So if you you find yourself shushing your child, your teen, I want you to be mindful of the words, or invite you to be mindful of the words they used when you shush them. Not the gist of the conversation, or not this morning when I was running out the door, but I couldn't find my sunglasses and my keys, and you were trying to tell me something. What was it? I know you wanted to say something. What was it? That's not good enough. That doesn't prove that you were carrying them all day. Remember, their words in your mouth. Their words in your mouth. So what you say is, this morning when I couldn't find my sunglasses and my keys, the last thing I heard you say was that Janessa texted you that something, and you think it's going to be a breakup. Did I get that right? Did I get that right? You're proving to them that you carried their words, with them all day long. That's how you get them to continue opening up. Make sense? Next slide. The ante up. If parenting is like poker, I see you and I raise you, right? So the ante up. You want them to tell you their secrets, you got to tell them yours. It's only fair. To the degree that's comfortable and appropriate for you. To the degree that's appropriate and comfortable for you, right? Not we haven't paid our taxes for 6 years and now we're being audited and actually levied, and let me teach you what a levy is. No. It's something appropriate, like here's a good one. I made a mistake today. What a great opener. It shows resilience. I forgot to put gas in the car. And then I had to call AAA and I was late for work. Whatever it is. Something that makes us relatable and approachable and proves our resilience and adaptability to life's difficulties. And then they can open up and lay down their cards. Just like a game of blackjack. The dealer won't deal you in unless you put some chips down. You put some chips down, and then you're playing the game. And the guy next to you might even show you his cards. It's a game of cards. Next slide. Oh, by the way, never steal a card. Let's go back one. Never steal a card from their hand. Again, you don't want to be the parent that says, I don't want you to be the parent that says, it's okay if you're gay, just come out already, or in some variation thereof, right? That's stealing their card. Why is that bad? Not just for the obvious reasons, if they're not obvious for you, it's because it shames them, right? But the less obvious reasons, because when we take a card out of their hand, they're going to have to pick up another card that they're not going to show you. That's how the game works. Every time you lay down a card, you pick up another one. And then they're going to have another card that you don't know about. So the goal is to get them to lay them down, not to take them from you. Does that make sense? I'll prove it. When I was 14 years old, I was sad and depressed watching Carol Burnett on a Saturday night. My dad sat on my bed and said, you're sad and depressed, but I didn't know it. And he's taking the card out of me. I'm going to tell you why you're sad. You're sad because, and he's taking the card out of my hand, because you're 14 and you have no more bar mitzvahs to go to. Last year, every Saturday night, you were dancing. And now you're watching TV. So why that bothered me was this. He was right, and it's innocuous enough. But if he knew that that card was in my hand, that implied that he knew all the others. And that the others, about the sexuality, about the fantasies, about I don't want to go to college, I want to just be a dancer. About I don't believe in his God, because his God smites once in a while. His God is a vengeful God. I'm not sure I want to believe in that God. If he knows that card, he must know the others. And that pushes me further away and into my closet. Does that make sense? You can't steal their secrets. It challenges them closer to the vest. Next slide is about sexuality. I want you to have conversations with your children about sex, literally about condoms and mucous membranes, and about STIs and the difference between an STD and an STI. And if you don't know, just buy my book. It's all there. I've taught you. Seriously, shameless plug. It's all there. What's new with AIDS? What's about chlamydia? It's all there. It's a whole chapter in an appendix at the back. You could read together, right? But I want you to have conversations with them about sex. Now, if you are not comfortable with them, with having the conversation, two suggestions. One, find somebody who is, but better, two, be uncomfortable. Start by saying, okay, look, this is the time that we're going to have one of those really uncomfortable conversations. I'm so uncomfortable. Okay, let's begin. Tell the truth about how you feel. But here's an interesting slide from I got this idea from a book. I forget his name, but he gave me permission to use it. So I got his permission. That when teenagers ask me, how do I know when I'm ready to have sex, right? There are so many ways to answer that question, but the best way to answer it I can think of is this one. Sit with them, your child, or your nephew and your niece, your grandchild, your friends, your kids' friends, and ask them to come up with a list of conditions for sexual intimacy. What standards do I have to have? What 5, 6, 7 things, 21 thing do I have to have before I know I'm ready to have sex? And they change based on the person. Here are some examples. I need to feel good about myself. I need to feel good about my partner. I need to have reliable information about sex and birth control. We will have talked about birth control and safer sex. They decide with your help and suggestions their conditions so that they can find on their own when they're ready to have sex. More important, should they be at a BBYO convention, Motzei Shabbat, at the dance, in the gym, in the dark, and they are going to hook up after, which is where it happens, when other places too, but mostly after the dance, they can go in their head through the list. Wait, have I met those conditions? And you're in the conversation with them after the dance, silently in their head. Next slide. We're not going to go through this. It's in the book, but this is about HIV and AIDS, and it's dear to my heart because I wasn't taught this, and now I'm living with HIV for 34 years. A lot easier in 2021, but it's unnecessary for anybody to get infected today, and people still get infected, right? So I'm not going to take up the time to teach you how to teach teenagers about HIV and how. I will only say this. It can be done in 3 minutes. And when schools say to me, we can't hire you to teach our teens about HIV and AIDS because we don't have enough time in the curriculum, my response is, you don't have 3 minutes? Because that's all it takes. Now, it requires like a good few days of classwork, but really to save a teen's life from HIV can be done in 3 minutes. There's no excuse to not teach teenagers this stuff. This is what I want them to know, and it's all in my book. Twice. It's written there twice in my book. Next slide. But I do want you to know this. How many of you, and please be honest, because I think that this is important, and it's really important to be humble and say, I don't know. Now, how many of you don't know about PEP? Raise your hands. Thank you. Thank you for being honest. That's great. PEP is called post-exposure prophylaxis. Prophylaxis is a fancy word for preventative. Post-exposure, it's a morning after pill for HIV. Should the condom break? Should your daughter or son not use a condom if they were too drunk to remember what they did the night before? God forbid it was rape or coercion, the absence of consent, what other words you want to use. You've got 3 days, they've got 3 days, 72 hours to take a regimen of pills for 28 days, 1 month, the same pills I'm on for the rest of my life, similar type, that will arrest the virus and they will not get infected with HIV. It's a morning after pill for HIV, and you need to know it. Everybody in America needs to know it exists. We all know about remdesivir, right? Thank you. We all know remdesivir exists. How come we all don't know that PEP exists? It saves lives. So next slide. There's and where you can get it is greaterthan.org. If you can't go to your pharmacist, if your doctor doesn't have access to it, just go to greaterthan.org and type in your zip code, and you will find out where in Northfield, Deerfield, sorry, where am I? Northfield, where in Northfield you can get some regimen of PEP. right? You can find it right here to the nearest zip code. Next slide. Thank you. PrEP is the opposite. PrEP is pre-exposure. I want you to know this. This is a bit scientific, but it's really important. Before the sexual act, if a teenager or an adult is hooking up with somebody who is HIV, but how do you know if they have it or not? PrEP stops HIV from getting into your immune system. It gets into your body, but it can't get into the cells because of the molecular way it works, the biological way it works. And so PrEP is a pill you take every day if you're HIV negative to get you, to keep you HIV negative. It's a miracle. I almost cursed. That's how much a miracle it is. How I wish it existed in 1987. It's not for everybody. There are some side effects, but they're not really strong. But it's not for everybody. But it exists, and if you know remdesivir, there's no excuse for you not to know about PrEP, right? Next slide. So this is for the rabbi. So on Friday, I had this, we were with some educators, and one of the educators interrupted me and said, so these are all types of different sexuality, but the word straight isn't on there. And if you leave straight out, you're just basically excluding, you're making everybody else who's not straight sort of excluded. So I just want to prove that I added it in. Okay, so it's there. Yeah, please tell with, I think it was N may have said it. Yeah, okay, great. So this is like all of it. And in a couple years, there'll be more. When we were kids, it was gay and straight or fagula, right? Remember grandma saying fagula? Oh, he's a fagula. My great aunt Linda would say, sure, there were fagulas in the shtetl. We just, we left, they were, that's what you would call them, right? But now it's everything from lesbian to gay, bisexual, trans, all that. On this list, what I want you to know most of all is the word pansexual. Pansexual is what many teenagers, I'm told in Chicago by these educators, it's not, but around the country, it's what most teenagers identify with, pansexual or queer. It just means attracted to the energy, not so much the genitals of somebody else, right? And queer, when we were kids, was pejorative. It was how you made fun of somebody. You called somebody queer. Now it's been repurposed and it's been taken back, and it's a word many teens use to define where they fit on this spectrum. Queer. Next slide. It's a definition. We can skip that. In terms of gender, so that's sexuality. Gay, straight, bi, hetero, all of that is sexuality. This is gender, male, female. And when it comes to gender, there's gender identity and there's gender expression. How I identify and how I express. I may identify as a male, but I want to wear a purse. I'm not a woman. I'm not transitioning. I'm a man who wears nail polish, lipsticks, and a purse. Identity versus expression. You get the semantics? There are many. It's a different world now. I'm only bringing this up because it's a huge, there's been you all know somebody in your child's world who's trans or trans questioning. Therefore, you also know somebody who's transphobic as well. But the world is changing real quickly, and it's happening all the time now. So let's see what we got next. Thanks. And consent, there's so much we have to say about consent, but consent is the lecture that your daughters and your sons will get when they go to college at the orientation before classes start as a freshman, and that's when it's too late. Consent needs to be a conversation they have when they're in fourth grade, sharing their toys. You can't just take my crayon, right? It's at first grade. And also, I would hope it comes from you, modeled from you, taught by you, as well as me teaching a fraternity group or a group of sorority sisters at a college. Consent is a conversation that I want you to have, and there's plenty of information in my book about how to teach consent. We're just running out of time. Next slide. Oh yeah, in terms of pronouns, we said they. I said they earlier. I just want you to know that last year or 2 years ago, the Merriam-Webster put the non-binary pronoun they in. So they, whether you have a problem with or not, is now in Merriam-Webster's dictionary. A lot of people say, I can't use they because it doesn't make sense. It's not grammatically correct. But according to Merriam-Webster, it now is. So there's your argument for somebody who says, I can't use they. Next slide. Let's keep going. We don't have time. Okay. What to do when you don't know what to do. 6 minutes left. What to do when you don't know what to do. The three nevers. Never meet hysteria with hysteria. It only creates more hysteria. Should you find your daughter cutting her skin in places you will never see? Should you find out that your son is selling drugs, not just doing drugs, but selling drugs? Never get hysterical because it creates more hysteria, right? What do? Hysteria, by the way, is quiet in a teen girl. It's a toothbrush down her throat, throwing up her dinner. That's quiet hysteria. So if you meet it with your hysteria, it makes her want to throw up more or cut more. And I'm not suggesting that you are the problem and that it's your fault. I'm not. I'm not saying you did something wrong. I am saying that when we meet their hysteria with ours by taking the hinges off the door, punishing them, taking their phone away, they only want to hurt themselves more. Our hysteria creates more hysteria in them, right? It negates their feelings. It's saying, no, you're not. You're amazing. And they're feeling that they're not amazing. So 3 things you never want to do. Never get hysterical when they're hysterical. You call your partner, you call your therapist, you take a breath, but in the moment you deal with it in a loving, kind way. Never take it personally. Parenting isn't personal. In fact, repeat after me. Parenting isn't personal. Let me hear you say that. Yeah, please, please, please remember that you said that. It's not about you. Parenting isn't personal. When they ignore you, it's not about you. If it's about you, it's congratulations, you've given them someone to ignore. Right? It's not personal. And finally, never give up on your team. Right? You know that. You know that. Next slide. Now, let's just keep going past through all the self-harm. I will just say, keep going. Keep going. Yeah, leave, go back. Okay, so self-harm is a huge issue right now, or it has been for a couple decades, with teens of privilege. And and teenagers will cut in places they don't want you to know about and see, boys and girls. And here are some quotes from teens who cut themselves. There's statistical information and research on the fact that certain chemicals get released in the brain when a person cuts their skin. If I cut my skin, the norepinephrine will not be released in my brain. But to some other people, that does happen. So there's a reason they do it. It works for some people. When we think, oh my God, who could ever do that? It's because we have brains that don't release those endorphins or serotonin or whatever those with norepinephrine. But for their brains, it does get released. So therefore, it works. Get that? It's not a bad thing. It's a dangerous thing, but it's what they're found an option that works. Here are their reasons. I cut myself in my chest. It's the only place I can do it without people seeing. I don't think I deserve to be listened to. I cut because physical pain starts and ends, but emotional pain goes on and on. So what do when the terrible blow arrives? Next slide, you'd BRVAM. It's just an acronym I created, and there are handouts here for you. And if you don't want to buy the book, because the book has all of it in the book, you can take the handout, please do. And it teaches you how to BRVAM. So BRVAM is simply a way to take a beat, figure out what I want to say, and help the person in pain. It's reflective listening. It's loving, kind listening. So the first thing you do, next slide, is you breathe. It buys you time. It opens your heart. It makes you attractive, magnetic, and appealing. The next thing you do is invite with conversation. What happened, when, where, how, never why. Next thing you do, so here are some examples. I'm listening, I'm interested, I'm curious, I'd like to know, I'd love it if you would, give me examples. Only I statements, not you. Where were you? But I'd like to know. Always begin with I when you invite. Next one, avoid asking why. Next one. Then you repeat back exactly what you heard, not what you think you heard, exactly what you heard. Their words, your mouth. And ask, did I get it right? And if you didn't, they'll say, no, I did not say that I'm agitated. What I said was, I have anger. Wrong A word? Got it. I want to make sure I got you exactly right. I'm with you. Repeat back what you heard. Next slide. Examples of that. Did I get the picture? Am I accurate? Next slide. Validate. Here are some examples of validating statements. Here we go. And it's all in the book. Next slide. It must be so blank to feel that way. If I were in that situation, I'd feel that way. All of these are validating statements. I can see how that would make you feel really sad. I can't imagine how you went through that. That must be really discouraging. The one in purple is a really brilliant one at the very bottom, the purple. So that's what it feels like. What a beautiful sentence. It's a line from a character in a teen video game. The character heals you. Her name is Mercy. And she says, so that's what it feels like. What a beautiful, validating statement. And yes, I hate my life. Yes. I want to die. Yes. I know you want to say no. But the right answer to say is, yes, what I'm hearing you say is you want to die. Let's unpack it. You following what I'm saying? Next slide. Then you appreciate, thank you for telling me. Next slide. I appreciate that you, thank you for, thank you. I think I get it. I admire you. I appreciate you. Never forget to thank them for opening up to you. Final slide, mediate. So here's what it sounds like. Next slide. I'm curious to know what happened and then they talk. As I understand it, what you've said is, you repeat back. Does it sound right? Got it? Validate. It must have been really difficult to go through that. I don't blame you for feeling that way. Appreciate, thank you for telling me. I believe you. I believe you. I believe you. Even if you don't. Right now is the time to say, I believe you. Next slide. No, next thing is, now let's see if we can figure this out, how I can support you. Teenagers don't want to hear you say, how can I help you? Because that means that they're helpless. Narcissists, people with narcissistic personality disorder never want to hear, can I help you? Because that implies to them that they need help. Teenagers are healthy narcissists, not disordered narcissists. So when you say, I want to help you, you're implying to them that they need help. How can I support you is a softer term that doesn't ignite the amygdala, but comes to the prefrontal cortex, right? And next, Nick, keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Yeah, go back. Cherish the I hate you moments. So when a teenager says, I hate you, what they're really saying is, I hate my life. Or I hate something in my life. But if they can say it to you, like if they say that to their friends, they're not invited to the party. If they say that to you, there's a chance they're going to get breakfast and maybe a ride to the mall, right? That's unconditional love. If a teenager says, I hate you, you're doing something right. If a teenager says, I hate my life, and they're saying it to you, you're doing something right. So cherish those moments, because if they can say it to you, they know that you're the canvas they can write the story on. The empty canvas, they can re-script their story. Next slide. Feel the void, don't fill the void. So what does that mean? Stop fixing it. Stop trying to fix it. Some things can't be fixed. I know we have to stop. When I got infected with HIV, my father was a health teacher. He knew he couldn't take the HIV away. So what could he do? He could feel what I was feeling. And this is the last slide. Next one. This is a picture of what happened in Universal Studios at the Spider-Man ride about 3 or 4 years ago. A little boy with autism only wanted to ride the Spider-Man ride. And his parents said, we're going to do it at the end of the day. And the end of the day came, and he gets online, and the ride broke. So there he is on the ground having a tantrum. When the ride operator walks over and lays down on the ground next to him, mimicking his behavior and modeling calmness. And then once in a while would say to the passersby, nothing to see here, keep moving on. The ride is closed, keep moving, nothing to see here. And the parents are writing about this on Facebook. It's an article I read with the picture attached. After a few minutes, he stops crying. They get up on their knees. She mirrors his behavior. She gives him a fist pump and says, look, I can't get you on the ride, but I can get you anything you want from the gift store. What did she do? She didn't fix it. She felt it. She literally got down on the ground, on the asphalt, on the cement, and felt it with him. When you can't fix it, feel it. I know you say, but I don't want them to be in pain. Yeah, but they are. They just are. Life is hard, especially in a pandemic. So they're in pain. So get down on the ground, and I mean this literally. Get down on the ground with them and feel it with them. And then when you get up with them, your relationship will be different because you'll have the courage to, you'll have had the courage to go there. So the last thing I want to say, because we don't have much more time, is this works really well for the children who don't have Asperger's or aren't on the spectrum in some way. I want you to touch them on their face. A child with autism doesn't like to be touched on their face most. They only make eye contact many times. But somebody who doesn't have that issue, there's something really powerful about a loving other, a parent or grandparent, that places their hands so tenderly on their child's face, and it's so healing. It just is. Why? Because it's a part of our bodies that are always exposed and never touched in our culture. But now, of course, we're covered up because of a mask. Something about placing your hands, they can't look away, and I want you to say 1, 2, or 3 word sentences that begin with I and end with you, and it's not I love you. Because they're expecting, here comes the I love you. So you're going to say a 1, 2, or 3 or 4 word sentence. I believe you. I believe in you. I like you. There's a difference between being liked and loved. I like you. I am here for you. I blank, 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 you. It heals. And if you can't touch, at least say those words. So we're going to end this way. I'm going to ask you to say this phrase that I've asked all my students to say. I value my life. And I value my mistakes. And even though I make mistakes, I belong here. Because I am enough and I am completely lovable. If you believe it about yourself, there's a good chance that they could believe it about themselves. 3 thank yous. 1 thank you to the synagogue for bringing me in and taking a chance on me, and to Matt for making it all happen. Thank you to you for spending an hour and a half on a Sunday morning with me, and you could be someplace else. And most of all, thank you for being a parent. I'm not a parent. You are, and a grandparent. It's a job that will last long after you leave this planet. You will still be their parent and grandparent. You know that. And the last thing I'm going to say is something that I want you to imagine your children saying to you, you saying to your children many, many, many years from now, in the future. I've enjoyed your company. I really have. And I hope I've served you well. Thank you so much. So I've got books here. I've got the book that I taught you today. I've got the books that I've written for teenagers here. This is a book of their letters and my answers. This is a book of their poetry, their artwork, and some poems. And come take a look if you want. Thank you. Yeah, that's at 11, right? Okay. I think he said we're going to be in the same room. Matt said he wants to be in.